I deeply have misunderstood bulking and cutting. Over the past, honestly, today, over the past today, I've realized that I really have backwards engineered lifting in my head, right? And I'll tie all this in and make it make sense in a minute, but I wanna give you a little bit of an insight into my lore, right? I started off, lifting very skinny, very underweight. I was around about 133 when I first started taking lifting serious, and I was tracking my lifts and trying to track my calories and macros and different things like this. And something that I'm sorry, I feel so uncomfortable at this camera angle, but this is the only angle that's getting light. Yeah, I started off lifting. I was very skinny, 133 pounds, you feel me, soaking wet. And now I'm around about 160. I don't look too bad, you feel me? I got a few progress photos. I lost a few of them because I broke my phone not too long ago, but we're not gonna get into that. I don't look too bad, right? However, one thing that has always been kind of iffy for me is bulking, right? Obviously, as you can infer, I gained about 30 pounds, over the course of, the past few years that I have been lifting. And I mean, yeah, like that was a bulk. However, slowly I've been realizing that bulk was insignificant in comparison to the one that I need to achieve to actually get to the strength goals that I want. Back then, I'll be honest, I wasn't very great at tracking my macros. I didn't meal prep. I didn't even really know how to cook back then. You feel me? So, a lot of things that now are more in reach seemed very far out of my reach before. They seemed like anomalies. They seem like, damn, like how am I gonna, because my initial goal was to bulk up to 200. And then as time went on, I was just like, oh, I don't know how feasible that is. But, I just been thinking all day today, and I realized that it's a lot more feasible than I thought, right? I bought a new fucking nutrition scale, because I lost access to the one I had before. It was at my parents' house, you feel me? As you guys know, I'm homeless, I moved out, so a lot of shit that I had, I kind of just left there. The important shit I brought with me, of course. But, that was one of the things I just kind of left. And I didn't have my nutrition scale, so I was like, oh, how am I going to track macros and track different things? Like, no way I'm going to be able to bulk to 200 pounds, right? But it's not impossible, and I'm realizing that now. It's still going to be difficult, but for the goals I want to reach, I realize now that it's inevitable, right? And I've had it all wrong. Over the course of time I've been lifting and doing all these things, I started to give in to this idea that I could get bigger and gain more mass and get stronger without bulking, right? And this was mainly due to just me getting a more dialed in training regimen. Like, my training is far more just intense and intentional, and it's not just a bunch of junk volume. I'm actually lifting with purpose, right? I'm the most I will do is 2 sets max, right? Look, I lift every day, ideally, right? Ideally, I'm really trying to lock back in. That's why I'm making this video to begin with, right? But ideally, I lift every day, okay? But I'm not doing fucking 4 sets every exercise. I'm not doing 20 different exercises. I'm not doing so much volume to the point where my intensity just crumbles, right? So as I kind of adjusted my training, I started seeing, my lifts progressing a little bit again, right? I started seeing a little bit of not necessarily newbie gains, but I started getting more pumps, right? I started seeing that 5 pound progression week to week. You know what I'm saying? I started seeing that again. I was like, oh, so all I had to do was just start training better. I mean, yeah, that's part of it. However, you still need the basic fundamentals. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to hit a 225 bench if I'm 160 pounds, right? At least not as I am right now. If I'm just starting out like that, like, no. Right? At the end of the day, how it all works itself out is you need the mass. If you're a natural lifter, you need the mass to actually get big, to get strong in a time frame that is not absurd, right? If I decided, you know what, fuck it, I'm never gonna bulk, I'm just gonna maintain my physique because I got the abs, I'm lean, and I'm just gonna keep trying to fucking main gain and just fucking like try and just progress in my lifts without ever gaining any more weight because I just feel like I'm just so lean and I could just no, it doesn't work like that. There's a natural ceiling, right? And once you cap out at that like you're there, right? You're not gonna get to that natural ceiling any quicker if you're just staying stagnant in weight. Your weight has to go up. Right now, if you decide to cut back down or like stay like, because this is what I had to realize, right? When I was thinking about it, 200 pounds, bulking up to 200 pounds, it seems like such a tall task for me, right? But think about it, 160 sounded like a lot, and now I'm maintaining 160. So imagine then I bulk to 170. You know, it may feel like a lot at the time, but shit, then I get to 180 and now 170 feels like maintenance, right? I've been watching this guy, Revival Fitness, I believe his channel name is Revival Fitness. And he talks a lot about bulking. And his stance on it, you know, is if you start out as a skinnier guy or a skinny fat guy, right, is if you start out and you're skinnier and you don't have a lot of weight on your frame and, you know, you don't really have any muscle, if you like just actually dial in your diet and you know how to track your macros and you're training properly, your metabolism, it's already fast. Like your body already doesn't want to be big. Your body wants to be small, right? But if all these things are the way they need to be, your sleep, your diet, your training, right? If all that is in tandem together and it's working in harmony, all that excess calories that you get is going to be going into your muscles, right? And your metabolism is going to function for that. And what was once harder and, you know, like felt like a lot, like, damn, I gotta fucking bulk up to all this, it becomes your new maintenance, right? And I had to realize that. I was like, okay, 160 didn't feel like my maintenance before, but now it does. My appetite has grown. So naturally, that must be what's gonna happen with 200. Now, it's not gonna be just an infinite thing of like, oh, just continue to bulk and bulk and bulk until I'm like 300, 400 pounds. It doesn't work like that, right? Because if that was the case, then the oldest people in the world that still live would be the biggest, right? We would have actual Yamamotos in real life and fucking, what's that one nigga from Dragon Ball? I genuinely, Roshi? Is that his name? Roshi? Master Roshi? Yeah, we would have niggas like that in real life. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you gotta kind of look at it. Is you don't want to go overboard with it. You definitely don't want to dirty bulk, but you definitely want to bulk, right? If you want to actually get big and get strong, you have to bulk, right? And I had to realize that, right? I got a nutrition scale now. I'm gonna start getting my shit together. I like, you know, I was already meal prepping. I just didn't know how much I was actually getting from my meal prep. I weighed it all out. Feel me? I have the numbers now, right? Like, and I really was like, okay, like, how can I get to my goals and like how can I get to where I want to be? How can I hit my protein daily? You feel me? Like I started using protein powder again. Like I was like, oh, I'm homeless. How am I gonna get my protein powder? There's a way. If there's a will, there is a way. No matter what, like you can doubt yourself all you want, but if there is a will, there is a way. I didn't believe that I could have protein powder. I'm like, oh, it's gonna fucking spoil and this, that, and the third, bro. It doesn't matter. All right. At the end of the day, if you really want it, you're gonna find a way to fit it in to your schedule. You will. You can make the excuse of you don't have time, of this and that and that and this. It doesn't matter, right? But my overall point, right? I say all this to say that I had bulking and cutting all wrong. For a short period of time recently, I thought I had to cut, right? Because I noticed that I'm not perfect with my diet. I tend to eat junk food and snack on junk food and like fucking like gas station food and like vending machine and shit, having Twixes here and there and zebra cakes and honey buns and shit like that. Like, I like to snack on bullshit, right? And so I noticed this and I was like, damn, I continue like this, bro, I'm gonna get a lot of just fat in my midsection. And I didn't want that. And summer's coming around and I'm like, oh, like I want to stay lean and get leaner. You feel me? I'm like, I gotta cut that out. So I'm like, okay, I'll cut out junk food. All right, cool. Right? But then I'm like, oh, well, I mean, sure, I can cut out junk food, but like, maybe I should cut so I can get a little bit leaner and this, that, and the third. But it's like, okay, sure, you cut. Now what? Now you're getting weaker in your lifts and you're probably going to lose a little bit of muscle definition. You're going to feel tired. You're going to be now going below your maintenance and you're already thinner. You're already like not that big, right? You're already not big, just in general. And you're sitting here saying you want to cut? That's not the move. Just because you want abs. All just because you want abs. Right? And this goes back into what I was talking about with Revival Fitness. His, not even theory, apparently it's proven with multiple people. And I'm like swaying on his side of belief on things. His belief is you can just bulk into abs. You don't have to just fucking cut and cut and cut to fucking lose more weight so your abs can finally show. At the end of the day, the best way I can put it in a way that kind of made it click in my mind is your abs are a muscle like any other muscle in your body, right? So are you gonna cut and cut and cut so you can get more shoulder definition or get more bicep definition so your biceps can get bigger or show through? Or like, no, you're not going to do that because that has nothing to do with that. It's about your muscle mass. If the muscle is not there, it's not going to show, right? So same as with your abs. If your ab wall is not thick enough to show just by itself, then it's just not going to show. It doesn't matter how lean you get. If you are small already and you don't have that muscle mass, you're not going to get leaner. You're going to get smaller and thinner. Your abs won't show. Your ribs will show. And that's the bottom line. It's so simple. And I started to realize this. It's like, okay, now what? Revival Fitness, he has the solution. It's to bulk. If you bulk, right, and you actually have a good training regimen, which I do have now, all right, and you get sufficient sleep and you bulk properly, you don't eat bullshit, you lean bulk, right, and you just continue with like say like you just up your calories each week if you don't gain any weight, right, after a week. I gotta get a scale, a weight scale for me, so I can actually track my weight. That's the one last thing I need. I ordered some pre-workout because I wanted to start using that again, like for leg days and shit. You feel me? I don't need it. I realize that, but I would like to have it. So I mean, what can you do, right? But that's going for me. Now all I really need is a scale so I can check my weight week to week. See, like, okay, this not enough, let's up the calories, you feel me? And then so on and so forth, right? And it'll be hard. I have to spend more money on food. I have to fucking be very watchful of, like, how, you know, like all these different things. But at the end of the day, it's not impossible, because if there is a will, there is a way. If you're like me, if you started out skinny and you're lifting, don't fall into the hype of, oh, you can just get bigger, you know, wow, like you know, I think what a lot of people, like how a lot of people get caught up in that is with the whole idea of hypertrophy training and or calisthenics training. I think those two things are what get people mixed up and what make people think that they don't have to bulk to get mass and gain actual sufficient muscle. You know, right? Like they'll look and they'll be like, oh, well, you know, I do this much push-ups a day or this many pull-ups a day with weighted vest or whatever the fuck, right? And I progress in that and I get stronger in that. So surely I don't need to bulk to gain muscle, because I'm getting muscle in those areas, and I'm able to do however many push-ups in a row, and oh, I'm doing isolation movements and I'm getting a good pump, and I'm okay. But how much can you squat? How much can you bent over row? Right? Once we start asking the real questions, that's when it gets a little bit funky, right? How much can you incline bench? I don't do flat bench, I do incline bench, and I do it on a Smith machine. And my max right now is about 180, maybe not even. I started to really sit down with myself and think, is this where I want to be? No. I want to be doing 225 for reps. Now, how do I get there? I have to bulk. Now, am I gonna cut after finally reaching that goal of 200, or maybe even like just 190, or however much that gets me to the point where I want to be at? Who knows, right? Maybe my metabolism really is so fast to where it can just absorb so much of that, and it will all just work itself out, and I won't even need to cut. But regardless of whether that's the case or not, if I do have to cut, it won't be very hard. It won't be very difficult, because like I said, my body doesn't want to be huge. But if I force it into that environment, if I force it, make it feel like it needs to be big to survive, like I'm forcing food, like oh shit, we have all this excess, and he's expending all this energy. Like, you know, you gotta think about your body. Like, it doesn't know what the fuck you're lifting. It doesn't know how many reps you're doing. It does, like, all it knows is like, fuck, he's putting us to work right now. How do we make it to where we don't die under all this fucking pressure and stress, right? And you feed it and you give it rest, sufficient rest. Actually, like, rest is important. You give it rest, you give it energy. Maybe it just works itself out, right? But regardless of whether that is the case or not, I realize that you really do have to be locked in, man. Like, you just do. I wanted to touch on this as well. Like, you know, because I mentioned Revival Fitness. I'm still not totally sure if that's his actual channel name, or if I think it's Revival Fitness. I don't think I'm tripping. But I say this to say, like, a recent content creator that I came across on YouTube Shorts, the Nick Lifts, right? I came across his channel, and, you know, I saw a story about how, you know, he was a heavier set guy, right? And it's always fascinating seeing stuff about bigger, like, people that started off in the gym as a bigger guy, you know, because they quite genuinely are the opposite of me, right? So it's always very interesting to see their side of things, because they start off with a slower metabolism, and you know it's harder for them. Like they gotta cut first, and all these different things. And I'm like, okay, so let's see what his journey is. Let me actually take a sip of this water because I keep opening it up. I'm not Anthony Edwards. I'm just opening the bottle, talking, and not drinking. Like I'm genuinely parched and I'm fucking thirsting myself for what. Anyway, but I saw his story, the Nick Lifts, and essentially he started off, you know, as a heavier set guy. He was bigger. I don't remember how much pounds he said he weighed, but he got into my weight range, right? And I'm trying to bulk. So if he got into my weight range, he got into like the 160, 150 range. I'm like, okay, so what's your goal? He says he wants to get abs, right? He wants his, essentially what I wanted, right? He just wants his abs to show without him needing to flex. My abs show when I flex, right? But I was like, oh, I want him to show when I don't flex. You need a thick ab wall. You need thick ab muscles. You need more muscle, right?
My goal is to be the weight of a child, and people think I'm crazy for it. You see, last week I was telling one of the guys in my gym about my plan to drop about 10 more pounds. Because right now I'm just below 160 and my abs are finally starting to pop through. But as soon as I said that, one of the trainers who works at the gym turned around. He looked at me and said,
"That's way too low. You're not a real man until you hit 200.
At first I honestly thought he was joking, but he was surprisingly dead serious. And once I realized that, I had a legit flashback to when I was overweight. At every part of my journey, I've been told not to lose anymore. 20 pounds ago, everyone told me to bulk. 40 pounds ago, people told me to just be happy. And believe it or not, even at 250 pounds, people try to tell me I was just a little bit chubby. And every single time, they were wrong. I've only gotten closer to my goal of having abs by listening to myself and the science. But I guess they are technically right about me weighing the same as a child. I was 153 pounds when I was 13, which is just above my goal right now at 21. Granted, I was 5'2", so we're talking about a really overweight kid. But that same weight now at 5'11" places me 20 pounds above what they consider underweight. So whether you think it's the right move or not, I'm gonna do it anyway. So if you want to see what I look like then, and if I have the abs, drop a fucking piece. My goal is to be the weight of a child.
So that's what I've been trying to get at with this. And he's like, oh, I want my abs to show. You know, his abs just weren't showing, right? Even though he's 150 pounds, you know, soaking wet, his abs won't show. I wonder why, right? And a lot of people would think like, oh, well, you know, if you're saying you need to bulk to gain mass, then how come he didn't get the mass by the time he got down to, you know, that 150 mark, right? How come he didn't have those abs, right? So shouldn't he just continue to cut until they do show? No, that's not how it works, all right? What I would like to think, what I theorize, my hypothesis, fuck you, you know what I'm trying to say. My hypothesis is that, you know, as a bigger guy, he's trying to cut and lose weight. His main focus probably was mainly just to lose the weight. So he did everything he needs to do with, like, you know, learning about food and dieting and all these different things with that. You feel me? But maybe the gym was like, oh, like, you know, I'm just doing the gym so I can just burn some extra calories, not really going too hard. You feel me? Maybe when you're bigger, you know, your cardio's not as good, so you can't really put as much intensity into a lift as you can once you do actually get to that lower body weight, because now, okay, you just have more energy because you don't have to move around as much weight. You feel me? But he's not really focused on that. He's more so just focused like, okay, like, how can I, you feel me, just how can I get to my goals? Right? But now that he is so skinny, maybe, you know, he is training better, and he does have better knowledge of how to actually work out to get, you know, to, you know, end destination. Maybe that may be the case, but you're 150 pounds now. And it's harder to gain muscle when you're skinny, right? I would know, all right? I would know. If I was trying to gain muscle when I was 133 pounds and just stayed 133 pounds trying to gain muscle and trying to get thicker abs, yeah, I mean, sure, I'd have some abs showing, but I'd also have my ribs showing, right? And maybe my lungs will be popping through a little bit. Maybe you'd be able to see my heartbeat through my chest. Like, I say all this to say you need to bulk to gain that muscle mass. So where once you do cut back down, it's gonna show, right? And you won't even need to cut down by that much, because the metabolism will do its job. And, you know, well, maybe not with him necessarily, because his metabolism's slower. So maybe he will have to just cut down right, for it to get to where he wants it to be. But as far as I'm concerned, your abs aren't showing, you need thicker abs, right? And your abs are a muscle. How do you get your muscles thicker? You get them bigger, you get them stronger. What's a good way to get them stronger? Bulk. Simple. Bulk and get more like mass on your frame, so your body has more to work with to give more to your muscles. Your muscles get bigger if you're training properly and all this different shit. And voila, you now have abs, right? He doesn't need to be 140 pounds and starving himself just to show abs that aren't there, right? Maybe it's harsh. Maybe it's like, oh, well, I have been training my abs. Yeah, maybe you have, man. But you're 150 pounds. You're 150 pounds now. And there's not much to work with. Yeah, like, it really just gets to a certain point. It just does. And it's like, when does it stop? Right? Because I was seeing some of his content and I was like, man, like, this nigga is gonna put himself in the ER with his type mindset. But I mean, I'm sure he'll probably get back right and he'll learn, like, maybe I shouldn't try and cut to 130 some pounds, like, let's not go that route. I think he'll stop before then, but only time will tell. I mean, shit, maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, nigga. I'm 19. And how many subscribers do I have? Where's my credibility at? I don't know. I gotta know I'm not a human background music playing. It is currently 11 p.m. I'm not gonna get no sleep tonight. What the fuck am I talking about? Recovery and shit. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just spitballing. So I mean, what do I know? I'm joking, right? But no, seriously, I'm gonna get hardly any sleep. I don't know how long it's gonna take to edit this video. This is a 30-minute video. Ooh. Well, damn. I mean, that is about all that I had to say. We're gonna try and get back, consistent with our upload schedule, and just consistent in life. Right, because I've been kind of sprinkling this in my videos recently, but times are tough. Times are fucking tough, and I'm trying to get back right, and I'm trying to get my shit back together, because things could spiral badly if I don't set them on the right track. And that's just how life goes. That is just the way that the cookie crumbles. I hope my phone can handle this. I hope, but only time will tell, and that's with all things in life. But I have hope. So yeah, thank you for watching, and yeah, peace out, y'all.